when Sam approached me to volunteer, I said, well, what subject do you want? And we eventually came to the plants in my aviary, and grasses and so forth. So my talk tonight is a little bit about that. You'll notice that I have very few types of plants, but every plant I have in my aviary has a purpose. Today, bird keeping has changed dramatically, and gone are the days when you build an aviary, 1/3 roof, seed, grit, water, and white ants, and more white ants. Now, the late Tommy Gibson and co bred literally hundreds of birds in the hunter this way, but he only bred to a certain level. So, in types, mainly waxbills. My first aviary was as per the original, some 50 years ago. But right now, I'm still learning, which I am. I'm still changing, and I'm about to change again over winter. The plants in my aviary, why? As much as the temptation is about mine or and your wife's, always think of the birds first. Daisies and things like that might look pretty, but they're probably not the best thing, and in fact they might be anti because they keep insects away. This is a shot of my big aviary. Just an interesting thing, that they're gum trees. And they started this year growing. The only reason they was left to grow is because I want some perches, so they've all been poisoned, and hopefully by the time next season starts, the leaves will be gone, otherwise I'll have to pick them up. But it gives me, that's the reason there. As you can see, there is a lot of plants in there, but they're not overgrown. An inside shot of that aviary, and as you can see, it's spread out, there's space, and there's various plants which I'll go through, but as you see, there's plenty of open area. The reason for that is that all our Australian birds come from country like that. That's up from at the top. It's not overgrown like a jungle. Well, I'll take away blue-faced parrot finches and a few of the red-browed finches, but the majority of birds come from a terrain like that. Not a jungle, it's open. Africa is the same. In fact, Africa is probably even less overgrown, where you have open areas with little thorn bushes and the waxbills and so forth nest in there. The only other type in the swamps where you have your reeds and so forth, which is another range of species. White plants, as you can see, food, nesting site, display sites, protection from the elements, protection from predators, protection from aggressive species, a safe haven for parents to leave their chicks, a demarcation of territory. As you see, they all help to keep particular species in good condition, and the list goes on. Sorry, as I said, there's two big do's and don'ts. I've seen too many aviaries so densely planted that the birds couldn't fly. Look good, but if you were keeping softbills, maybe. But our birds are not designed to live in a densely packed aviary. You know, I've seen aviaries at times with melaleucas and so forth, and the birds virtually have to hop in and out. This is detrimental to the birds in some respects, that it will not help them to display, it limits courtship, and it's not, while people think it's great, it is not. Open up your aviaries, providing you've got a shelter to give them protection, and growth so they can hide and display and build, you're far better off than having this great big built-up area. With your plants, you must choose if the plant can stand up to your birds. Chewing it, pulling it apart, and more importantly, you pruning them every year. The reason is you don't want an aviary with a lot of plants in the winter time, because the birds will get wet through the foliage. You're better off having a big shelter. Cut your plants right back. The first plant that is probably my favourite, and for numerous, is the rose bush. Now the rose bush has a lot of pluses going for it. It is quick growing. It will take massive pruning. In fact, that rose bush now is cut off to that line. All I did was use a chainsaw and went straight through it. Next year it'll come up again. So they're also, if you've got it, they, unlike a lot of trees, they have a big mass at the bottom. So if you do get rodents in, you can pick it and protect it. As you'll see, that metal circle, that is most of my plants that I've planted in the last few years are all in a metal collar. I'll explain a little bit further along the line, but I can control my plants that way. But as I said, the rose bush is a favourite. The other thing is, birds like thorny trees to nest in. They like thorny trees for protection. The problem is thorns and birds' rings don't match. They get hooked up and fight. The rose bush is great because all its thorns point downwards. So if a bird gets caught up on a ring, it drops, it falls off. So you rarely get birds caught up in a rose bush. Cotton asters and these things, they'll get hooked up. But with a rose bush, they will not, they don't get that hooked up, and we don't lose it, which is a major thing. I don't like rings, but you have to have them, particularly if you're trying to line breed or the identification of your species. As you can see, that's the rose bush. There's up the top, that's a weaver's nest that's gone in there. But I have the weavers, I've had all my wax bills, they all nest in those, and once again, the more you chop them back, the thicker they grow. As you can see, they're clear. That is a run along a walkway, and the amount of birds nesting in is great. This year was probably a bad year for me because they had such good growing season, everything got a bit leggy. Right? But those plants will all be cut back at that level in the next couple of weeks. The only reason I haven't got into it now is because I've got a spare pair of birds nesting in one of those bushes, and I don't want to disturb it because they're reasonably rare. Once again, that's all it is, a walkway. And incidentally, this big aviary is also, I've got aviaries right around which are used for my specific species. This is my indulgence. There's another weaver's nest, different type, once again in the top of the rose bush. They also have plenty of good flowers which keeps my wife happy wife, happy life. Okay, next plant is a common old prunus. Exactly the same as a rose. I can cut them off at near this high, and up they come again. Once, no thorns on that. How I got those, they were self-sown. I don't know where they come from, but they're pretty, I've kept them, and it's quite interesting. I keep orange bishop weavers, and one season they'll virtually totally nest in prunus, the next year they'll go to rose bushes. I don't know why, but it's whether that's that's happened within, right through my, the seasons of going. But that's just an ordinary, I think they're wild plum trees, to be honest. I've got others at the back which are purple, dark leaf, but once again, readily pruned. The next one of my trees is the common old golden privet. This is an overhang from my early days when I was starting off in Melbourne, when we wanted to have instant growth in the aviary. We'd go around and find houses that would be knocked down, and they generally had some golden privets in there. Half the time they were dragged out by the truck, dug a hole and they grow. That one there, when I chop it off, I could transplant that even though it's a big tree. So what I'm saying is, things like that plant that in winter time when they die right back, if you want to move them, you can. And see, at times if you want these established trees, you don't want to be waiting 4 to 5 years. You know, particularly I don't. But what I mean is, you can find these and they will grow. That's the beauty of rose bushes. One of the best rose bushes is your standard rose. All it is a vertical, and there's nothing underneath. So you've got a nice area, and out comes the whole structure. That's the same tree. You can see straight through a chainsaw. There's the rubbish there. Next year that'll come up. It won't be through the roof of my aviary, and it will. And once again, the species will nest in there. It's a great area tree for cover in the heat, and protection. I'll just dive straight into it. There's a bit of the rubbish. As you can see, it's pretty thick, but straight through a chainsaw. So what birds are in that aviary in winter time, they don't have to worry about them getting wet. It also forces them into the shelters where I want them to stay warm and dry. I'll show you a shot of my shelter later on. But this is the only native I keep, and it's just a common red bottle brush. But the reason it's thick like that is because every year I've really got stuck into it this year because it was getting a bit woody. But I've found if you leave a couple of twigs with leaves on down below, you'll generally reshoot and come up again. But the bottle brush will support numerous types of birds to nest in. And it's cut off there. It'll grow. I've got another one in there that's had the same treatment. My wife just shakes her head, but that's it. Okay. The family you go into after that is your grasses. Is your bamboos. This is the little fine Thai bamboo. What I do here is I've let a few of them go through the roof. And what it does if I have a hawk or something goes across, it breaks them so they can't, instead of being just swooping across, they've got to go up and over and so forth. Now, how you eliminate the rest of them going through the roof is you just pull the centre of the frond out. Just pull it up and it'll go to about that height and stop. If you don't pull it out, it'll just keep going. But the Thai bamboo, that's the same plant. You can see that through the roof. That one is lower. That also gets a bit of a pounding from some of the birds in there. But once again, it's cover. The only problem with that was built before I put a circle in it. So you've got to watch them that they don't spread. In one of one of my small aviaries, but it's a bit distorted because it was a cross shot. There's another shot of it. The thing about it, you've got to be careful, it goes very high, it goes through your roof, but it has there. But once again, it stands up to wear and tear. This here is a giant sedge. To be honest, I find it personally it's a waste of time. I've had birds get into it a bit, but nothing of any consequence. Grasses. Okay, before I go on to my grasses, I'll tell you about my water system. I've got two. One is this one here, which is what I call my clean water. That's actually an old hip bath about this deep. The water is pumped out of there, it circulates and goes right around. So in the summertime when it's hot, it's still getting, they've got cold water because it's coming from the bottom. Over the other side, I didn't get a shot of it. I've got another one, a bath without reticulation. That's my slime pool. People say, ooh, because it's got green string algae on it. You would be amazed at how many birds eat string algae. And if you have a look at my birds, the colour in it, you can see why they're so intense, because the algae has spirulina in it. And spirulina is what makes canary red. It's also what makes my painters red and my weavers red. And don't be frightened. Don't be frightened of slime, as long as the water's clean.
What about mosquitoes? Do you have problems with mosquitoes?
No, I don't have the problem with mosquitoes.
So you live in there?
They got Ross River Freedom where we are. No, I don't have. I must admit, over years in the past, I've had occasional painting with mosquito bite, but in general, I don't have problems with them.
Okay.
I had that. That's just a water weed there. The birds eat it, but it also there that stops anything being drowned. The water, this area in here, which is a dish about so big by so seating concrete, it's filled with little white stones to a depth of about such. So the birds, you'll find your Southeast Asian birds like the moonias and so forth will actually get in the water and have a good bath. African species will all stand around the end of it, dipping their head like some Australian birds. But they will get, and in the hot weather, they can drop the water, that water probably three inches in a day, just from spraying it from baths and just in general. But because it's recycled, it's cold and it's clean. They also, there is tend to be a bit of a slime build up on the face of the rock. The water dribbles out of that, they'll also eat that slime there. In that, it also, there's a row of roses, and these here are what I call phragmites, which are reeds, which are the feather-headed reed. All they are is in a plastic, half plastic 44-gallon drum set in the ground with water, and it's there purely for my weavers. They strip them and for their nests and so forth. You can see the row of prunus there. This is all just dead brush, because you always need as many satellite nesting spots as you can. But as you see, clear on the ground, very little. That one there, now this is phalaris, which you can go out to the side of the road and get clumps. Phalaris is the only seeding grass of any quality I use. You can cut that back 3 or 4 times during the year and it'll reseed. The reason I don't plant seeding grass in the aviaries is because I can't get continuity. I can throw seed in there, I can put these grasses or seed and stop. But if you're going to feed something, irrespective of what it is, you must have continuity with your birds. There's no point giving them live food Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It's no good. Whatever you're going to do, you've got to give them every day, because they get used to it. And they rely on it, particularly, mainly I'm talking birds rearing chicks, right? So by planting, I can't plant a crop of white millet or red millet or anything like that. I might add, I can't grow panic wild. Further north, the people do, and that's a great seeding grass. I don't have access to panics, which you can go out and cut armsfuls. That's fine, cut it, but you must do it every day. So because I don't grow seeding grass, I feed a huge amount of soak seed. I feed out, I do a plastic bucket 7/8 full of seed soaked every 3 days. So that's because it doesn't worry me, because while they're eating that, they're not eating dry seed. So they're going to eat, you know, but the thing is, they will go to that much quicker. I soak my seed, only soak it for 3 hours, then I drain it and freeze it, and bring it out over the 3. But it's, I never use, I freeze it because it stops everything. But that's why I give that, and that's why I don't plant actual crops of seed. What I do is throw handfuls of seed around the aviary, and the big red millet comes up in a plant, or the jet millet and so forth. But that's more of a bonus to the birds rather than me relying on that as a green feed.
Sorry, can I just ask you a question? Like, okay, that's well and good how you feed the bird. What happens when you sell a bird that lives in the luxury of soak seed every day, but when it goes to some other place, it won't have that? What sort of effect does that have on the bird?
Probably won't breed bigger clutches. I'm not being smart saying that. Because it's not a soak seed to add, but
Yeah.
you must have soak seed or live fooding dawn.
Yeah.
And I don't mean 7 o'clock or 6:30. You soak seed and live food is put in just before dark.
Right.
And the reason for that, and I also run cereal leaf pound cake. The reason I have those is because when the youngsters are in the nest, by the time dawn comes around, they're starving. And they need something to feed. Now, if you feed just dry seed, your birds will come down, they'll eat some seed, they'll have a drink, and they'll fly around your aviary. They won't go from perch to perch. What they're doing is allowing their gizzard to grind up the seed so they can put milk into the chick. Right, so if you've got cake or soaked seed, they virtually come in, eat it, drink the water and feed the youngsters.
Yeah.
That's, if you have a look at, that's critical, because you have a look at young Cubans, for instance, finches. In the summertime, they fledge perfectly feathered. In the middle of winter, if you fledge them, often they'll come out with head feathers, wing feathers and tail feathers. They're coming out at the same time, but they're not getting 1, 2 meals early and at night. So what we're suggesting is that this is why you give them this product at night, or give it excess so there's at least a little bit over for the dawn for them to get stuck into.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is true. It's just something that in fact happens with selling cordon blues from Hunter, red on white ants, going to Melbourne, where they're only going to feed maybe mealworms or maggots. Melbourne's the prime example. So, what you've got to do is you've got to be smart and get your birds to develop. That's why they try to buy Melbourne's down and get them onto just mealworms and so forth. Okay? I've got a love-hate relationship with this plant. This is Johnson grass. I find Johnson grass, if you're not careful, will take over and go everywhere. You really need to put it in a circle. When I keep talking circles, I've got many ones, but I also use the ring out of the 44-gallon drum to get in about this high. And I always have it out of the ground a bit higher. I'll explain why later on. Once again, this is Johnson grass. There's a seeding head on, at times, I've got no proof on this, but I reckon at times, if parrotfinches eat too much of it, it's liable to make them sick. I've had losses, but no proof on it, it's only my supposition. But for the first time in all my years, I've actually had a pair of birds nesting in that, breeders nesting in that particular clump at the moment. I've also got that one and another clump which is actually made a clump. So I'm going to put them in to see if I can keep them within a structure. The Johnson grass is another grass you can keep cutting. Cut it and the head. Cut it and the head. There's not a lot in the head. You know, you're probably better off getting white millet heads and freeze them and put them out that way. Something like that. This is Phragmites again, the reeds. Sorry, no it's not. That's Johnson grass. Sorry about that. That's my point I'm trying to say there. That whole area is just taken over by Johnson grass. That's actually about to be rounded up. I wouldn't hit it with Roundup because it's not to me a bad thing. Right. This is another shot of an aviary. What it is, they're my Phragmites, the reeds. All they are is they're actually in a pond with a bit of growth around gold. So they're all basically my main plants, all except a grass which I'm coming to. But that is, that's all I use and put them in for the Phragmite now. I don't know what name it is, but whoever put, the guy that gave me this, I've thanked him ever since. It's a grass, doesn't have a great head, but very, very quick growing. I cut it back, but the weavers and the nuns use it for nesting, and the nuns will nest in it. The amount of birds that nest in that it's quite amazing. Also, that's sitting in a ring. And as I said to you, I plant so the ring is about that high above the ground. So the dirt's right up there where the plant is, and it comes down like such, and right around that perimeter against that ring, I generally have Sangalinas nesting in it and things like that. The ground nesters, it gives them space for them to go under. And which, as I try to breed pigtails, it's rather important that they do nest. But once again, it's a plant it's a grass that is really, there is your ring. Now, that's a young plant, and as you can see, that one there, how green it is and nice. The birds haven't got ripped, they rip into it each year, so much so that I've got to cut it back, otherwise it'll be a tanning mess. Another nice green, now there's the gum trees growing there. But there's reeds in the drum there, and there's one other, that's the plant. All these little sorrel and stuff like that, that's self-sown, and the birds nibble on it, but it's not, it's there by accident rather than there by choice. Grass, it's another grass, which people call it a bamboo, but it's actually a segmented grass. You must put them in circles. If you don't, it just takes over. If I do, and there's another, if you've got a small aviary, you can, it's a very simple thing to plant these things. If you're worried about them getting damaged, all you do is go and buy yourself a black pot, the big ones, set it in the ground, and you go and buy another one, put your plant in it, and you lower it into that. When you want to shift it, you just pick it up, your hole's still there, take it away, and you can put another one in its place. You can do it with pots this big, any size, because you don't have to dig. So you just pull it out, move it. That's to recoup the plant, and bring another one in its place. Even grasses are great. Like if you've got you know, 6 or 7 of these pots with paddock grass in it, which if the birds don't get at it, 'cause if they're outside or the sparrows or anything else, you can get them huge, right? Because you're feeding and looking after them. Bring it in, plonk it in. They'll either nest in it or mow it down, pull it up, and replace it. So it can be done in a small area. You don't need to put massive amount of growth into it, but by controlling your plants, by doing that, you're limiting them to what you want them to be, not what they want to be. Johnson grass that's been decimated by white-headed nuns. This over here, that's one end of it. There's the other end. This season, that aviary's produced 62 white-headed nuns, 6 red-faced parrotfinches, because they weren't there for the full season, 12 golden song sparrows, and so far 18 buildings. Okay? What you've got is one clump of grass up on here, 2 bumps of that, and I chopped the privet back because it was finished. But that just shows you that it's all this is recent, all the growth that I need on those birds. Okay? So it's produced pretty well. Now this one here, this complete utter mess is what I call my refuge. What it is, it's an old, it's an old pond I had when I was breeding mandarin ducks in it. And it became overgrown and so forth. And it was the best thing I ever did because it's what I call my refuge. It's amazing how many birds fledge babies and want to hide them. Because, particularly for the first few days. And in the breeding season, there could be 40 babies in there. Just because the parents take them in there, they go out and feed. It's not there anymore, but we had a gum tree just near us, and every year the galahs used to bring their young ones into that tree. That's what they did there. They would bring them into that tree and they'd go off and feed. The same applies here, particularly young weavers, some of my young weavers. Birds that come out early, that are preyed on in the wild, weavers for instance, but a lot of jacquarinis, cup-shaped nest birds tend to bail out very early, and the parents like to move them across. Years ago, I was breeding Peking robins, and we were losing youngsters. They'd hatch and they'd be dead on the ground. And what they were doing is trying to follow the parents around because the parents were trying to find cover. Once they got the cover, the parents bring them out, plonk them in a row and leave them. And this is one of the things I use that make. I cut it back every year. I don't like it. It's horrible, really. It doesn't look great, but it serves such a purpose. I've got no real alternative. But before I close, remember, no matter how big your aviary is, you must have a decent shelter. Because this is a big aviary, I've got a big shelter. Now, as you can see, apart from when the window's been put in purely to the birds in winter time. They'll come in because they get their warmth from that. And I try to bring my birds into these sheltered areas. I've also got another shelter at the other end of the aviary, which is maybe not as big as that, but once again, it's a warm area. The reason I have two is because if an aggressive pair take over in there, then it gives the birds an area to go elsewhere. Same as when I feed inside here, and I feed in an outstation, so they've got 2 alternatives each day. Actually, I've got 3 feed stations, but 2 main ones. In I use a lot of these cylinders, and numerous birds nest there, crimson chats nest in there, and I even have Guardians build their own nests in them. My Guardians are neglected in the eyes of everyone else. They breed or die. And they breed well. It's fact of life. I was given a pair of yellow-headed Guardians last year. I'm going to quit them. The reason I'm going to quit them is because they came from a smallish aviary, and they will not put their youngsters on a perch. They'll feed them, and the little mongrels will sit on the ground for about a week or 10 days, and then they'll come up. I don't like that. My birds come out and onto a perch. So I'll give them to someone who wants to breed. They'll breed fine in small aviary, but I give my Guardians nothing special. As I said, numerous ones will nest, build their own nests. They burrow into these things, or they've actually got a pair that builds their own nest. I must admit though, the black-headed Guardians I've got haven't got about 45 different generations of cage breeders, but they will build their own nests. But as I said, big shoulder, so the birds can get in, get protected. That there is the talk on the grasses, or what I've got in my aviary. If you'd like me to continue, I've got another one there I did on weavers. There's some pretty good shots there. Would you like to see that? Have you got any questions first?
Do you give them sprouted seed as well as the soaked stuff?
No.
You don't let it sprout for another day or so?
No.
How come?
3 hours up. From everyone tells me that it's far better. It's far better diet-wise to let it chip. No, I'm too busy with that. My mate wouldn't.
After you soak it, you freeze it. After 3 hours, you freeze it.
Yeah, but no, I freeze it and I drain it well.
Yeah.
You don't drain it, it ends up a big ice block.
Yeah.
You drain it. I use this green seed they buy. I use those containers. The guys can use that. So what I do is I just put it in those and freeze it. But the reason, because
So it hasn't got the shoot on it.
not at all. The reason that I freeze it is because I'm just worried about if I get it to sit it somewhere after 2 or 3 days. I'm not over that keen. I'd rather freeze it straight away and then we feed it out.
You put it in the water?
Yeah, vertical
Soak it? Yeah.
Sorry, Bob. Vertical Well, it used to be household bleach, but I thought that I use Verconest now. But that's what I do. Just straight, yeah, Verconest in it. Put a half a teaspoon of Verconest into the water, over the seed, and then all I do is just drain it.
And it's only $10 a sachet.
And that lasts a long while. It's go away.
No, I'm not talking about work. I'll pick you up outside. Do you fertilise your plants? Or you said you use Roundup, and that doesn't scare you?
No.
So do you fertilise your roses and stuff? Or you have a...
I cut them with a chainsaw, mate.
No, I know you're
Why would I feed them?
I've been there. But you're not feeding them any...
It's cost me money.
Actually, the roundup tips you away, because I had an aviary when I was living in Parramatta, 12 acres now, and we were putting a new lawn in, and we got these, with being landscape people like Richard, to come to do it, all this, and they sprayed to kill everything first. Oh, well, they weren't at all. He would have known not to kill me birds. And there was was a Gouldian aviary that joined the lawn, and the next day, they all bloody got dead. And I said to these blokes, don't let any overspray go on the aviaries anyway. They're all yellow-headed Gouldians, virtually the whole lot of them were dead the next day. And I assumed that they'd used Roundup. And I thought, this is, I don't know how long ago it was. Well, I've been around now for 9 years, so it was longer than that ago.
Yeah, they've changed. I think that they're using a different chemical now, aren't they?
Well, you mentioned it to me on the Aussie Finch talk, because that big aviary I've got, I thought, this is impossible to, you know, digging out weeds and crap all the time, you go mad. And you said, no, you just go in your big aviary and spray it. So I've been doing it forever now, and I've never had a problem.
You know those big clumps of grass? I'm spraying that now. I needed to kill a couple. And we've sprayed those big, and they're going nice and yellow. I think we've voted that though. But yeah,
No,
I don't have a problem with that.
Is it all the time in aviary?
I don't know anything. Yeah, you've also got to look at the environment.
It's a controversial subject, isn't it?
You know, I know.
When you're on aviary like you are, there's always stuff.
But you've got, the biggest thing you can't, you've got to be careful with Roundup is that you don't get oversprayed. It's sort of in your day, all the roses will die and all that. But no, I've got no, hey, all I'm saying is what I do. I'm not saying that whatever that rush out to do it. That's what I do and how I find it. You know, unfortunately, and I'm also to blame, quite often something will happen or I'll blame something and a while later I find out I'd shut my mouth off too soon and it wasn't that. I had a situation where I had quite a reasonable large colony of red-faced parrotfinches and I went overseas to come home and there was none left. And I blamed some red-crested finches for dying for it because I was convinced there was. Turned out it wasn't them, something else happened, but because I shot my mouth off without, so you've got to be a little bit careful, you know, and when you hear things from people, just analyse it yourself. But I don't have a problem at all with that, with Roundup. Any other questions?
Same seed. What seed do you sow?
Generally my mix, which is just an ordinary finch mix, or sorry, budgie mix. I feed budgie mix because it's got a highest plain canary content in it. The only seed I feed on its own, it's also in my mix, is red millet. And and the reason I do that is because it's so popular. If you go to my food station, you'll find it's two-tiered. The top tier's got mealworms, maggots, plain cake, and pellets for softbill. And below that, it's red millet and a big container of soapseed. And there'll be anything up to 80 birds on there at a time. It's a big table.
How many months of the year do you feed the snake seed? All year round?
Most all year round.
Most of the year.
I cut back as soon as when the winter comes. I cut back a huge amount because I'm not feeding for babies. I try not to let my birds breed in winter time because the reason I don't want to do that is A, I'm liable to lose the hen birds through egg line or other misadventures, and also if they breed during the winter and you get a small clutch of one or two, it's great. But when your breeding season comes, when you want them to breed properly, they're worn out. They're looking for a rest. So you're better off resting them in the winter time and then letting them go. My painted finches, I bring them all inside every year. The reason I bring them inside, they're not heated or it's just to keep them dry. They're brought into an aviary inside, which is just sand on the floor, and they're fed dry seed and water. And I don't lose any over winter. And then springtime, I let them all go. Because I found that that's one species that doesn't like damp conditions. I bring some of my good stuff in honey just so I can keep control of it. But the thing is, by chopping the trees down, I'm also limiting nesting space. Their live food diet drops right away. Really only giving enough to keep some of the softbills going. But in general, I don't try and promote breeding. The only thing that breeds through the winter are buildings, no dry season. They just, you know. But the trouble with buildings is breeding them outside where we are. But in the winter when it gets cold, really cold, unless there's more than 3 youngsters in the nest, you'll generally lose them because they freeze through the night. You need 3 to keep it. 3 will sort of get them through because they keep each other warm. I don't know whether one each side and the one in the middle gets warm and then they do the change over. But I find that I'll get them through if there's 3 or more. 2 is struggling. And the only thing that you can help that is you put, if you've got a nest box and you find it there, put some grass or something underneath the lid of the box, or put a piece of foam under the lid which is insulated, because that heats right in. But they will. That's the only bird I really breed of any. The nuns will breed, but I try to limit them.
I guess also if you breed winter, you're allowing that for sunlight as well.
Oh, very much so.
That will help warm
The ground's dry.
Yeah. So it's too cold, you're not only promoting the growth, you're actually promoting more sunlight, more air for them to
That behaviour we do when we catch up. I can't catch up until I mow my trees down. That's quite hilarious.
How many birds you got?
In the big Avery, 300? Nah, about 300 or so. About 300 or so. But
Sorry, what are the dimensions?
that one there is 110 feet by 58 feet. What, actually, I can catch 95% of those birds in a half an hour. The other 5%, we'll talk about later. Because they're chickarees and things like that. Well, luckily I've got a big piece of shade cloth. And what I do is run it along from, that shelter is a full height door. I run it across and then out of a 45-degree angle. We just go into that. They go into that big shelter, and then next to that shelter is a small catching aviary, and that's how I catch them. Sorry. Yeah, they go into the small where I can, and still over. All birds that are released back in the aviary have got a ring on them, and they have a year ring. I use a year ring in this year. It's red and green. And the reason is for that is that birds, this is going to sound a bit odd, but birds age very quickly. Now, the birds that you think are only a couple of years ago old, if you really sit down and work out how old they are, you might be a bit surprised. But by using a multicoloured ring each year, I can visually tell even from outside how, because last year was mauve and green. The year before that was yellow and black. Okay, that's my system anyway.
So these just plastic splits?
Yeah. But I can do that because then I'm not selling people. If I sell birds, I'm not selling old birds. It's a really old bird that lives in the big aviary and dies from outside. But
And you just catch them all, you just do that once a year?
try to. I don't like to see. I don't like disturbing a lot of the stuff because this is why, by limiting, cutting the growth back, they're not listing until September of their nest. Which I'm talking in where I live. We have cool winters, hot summers, but we get frosts. And some of them are beauties.
Where do you live?
I live on the border, right on the border of New South Wales and Victoria, then you're Albury. I can't get any closer to the border.
You're in Mexico, are you?
I'm not. I'm ex-Mexico. Of course, fish from the lake. Don't like me.
Such a large number, Avery. How about something like mice and rodents?
I have a constant battle with mice, because I've never seen an aviary, a reasonable size aviary that's mouse-proof. I've seen them nearly mouse-proof, where one got in, or some got in, and they had to get the inspect people out to get rid of them because they couldn't get out. But I use tomcat all the time, because that tomcat web, and I find if the bait station gets knocked over, 6 litter birds, they eat it, doesn't hurt them.
What about sticks with 2 eyes?
Sorry?
What about sticks with 2 eyes?
Sticks with 2 eyes. All right, I'll bite.
Snakes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes, I've had one snake in the aviary, which was quite an experience, because I had each side of it with a tree between it. I didn't know what to do. Yeah, so yeah, I've had one. That's the only thing I've had. But I'm lucky. We don't have pythons or anything like that down here. But right at the back, our fence to this.
Thank you very much.